Garrosh. One of the more, controversial characters in the game. Did he do anything wrong? Some people don't think so. I certainly think that he was done wrong by Thrall, Pussy Boy Thrall, and the way he treated him. Garrosh was a leader. A good leader? Maybe not. But a strong leader, he sure was. Well, WoW devs have now revealed why Garrosh went evil. Initially, it didn't seem like he was gonna be. The Alliance demanded it. Let's see what Doran, the Teller of a Thousand Truths, has to say.
So if back in Cataclysm you felt the Alliance was getting the short end of the stick, and if you ever felt that Garrosh's super villain transformation in MoB was weird, you were completely right.
It was weird, and if you ever played the quest line, there was a point where he sent one of his commanders, I can't remember which commander it was, but he sent him out to like raid a village or something, and he killed the women and the children. And Garrosh heard about this and literally threw him off the top of fucking Thunderbluff. He was pissed off. He was like, this is dishonorable. You killed women and children. Get the fuck out of my horde. And he threw him off the top of Thunderbluff. That was the Garrosh that was early on in the game. When he turned evil and when that whole thing, I think it was like Steve Denuser came, some weird shit happened, and suddenly he became evil. But I guess I should let the video play because we're going to find out why he became evil.
Just got an incredibly interesting insight from a former
Bald
lead
orc.
Blizzard developer that created a storyline that addresses the whole mess that was the faction storyline of the Southern Barons and how the criticism from the players led to them turning Garrosh from a guy with some bad sides but still honorable to a complete monster that just ended up consuming a heart of an old god, and this was all really done to appease Alliance fans. So let's look at this insight, how this bit of storyline from Cataclysm impacted World of Warcraft all the way up to the World
gonna blame the
Soul
Alliance?
Saga. While having the best deals on the market for all games and software, Gamivo just added mobile top-ups for your favorite mobile games with the best prices that you can get with my Gamivo link in the description below. Best of all, if you use my code DORON, your discount will be even bigger, so make sure to use my link in the description and the code and check out Gamivo.
I blame Samiccus.
So, for all of you more old-school players, you might remember some of the old criticism and the old storylines from Cataclysm that lead all the way up to today, and it is crazy how certain questlines all the way from Cataclysm impacted the factions pretty much up to the World Soul Saga. So, the information that I'm basing this on is from Dave Kosak, one of the lead Blizzard developers and one of the quest designers back from Cataclysm, as he reveals some really insightful behind-the-scenes information about how they created a storyline and why Garrosh turned out evil, and it's...
Mind you, it's sad how Garrosh ended up taking the turn that he did. I don't know if a lot of you guys know this, Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, those were RTS games. Garrosh was the first main character that was born, bred, and died in World of Warcraft. He did not exist prior to World of Warcraft existing. So Garrosh was an interesting character when we first discovered him in Nagran.
Really interesting because what
back
a lot
in
of people
Burning
thought
Crusade
was happening back then ended up being actually the case. So it starts all the way back in 2009 while they're building the Cataclysm, which by that point was the most ambitious expansion they had ever built, giving us a whole world revamp but also pretty big war that started spiraling out of control pretty much all the way until the Shadowlands, which did kind of come out of nowhere as well.
Fucking worst cinematic ever. I can't believe this is how Arthas ended. Unbelievable.
Which did kind of come out of nowhere as well. There was the Vratgate event. The Alliance mainly worked together by that point to fight the bigger evils. There wasn't really a crazy all-out war where they were throwing out shocking mana bombs at each other and sacking each other's capitals. So Dave talks about Southern Barons and how that ended up being a point of criticism and hate from the Alliance players and why it played out as it did. As you may remember, Southern Barons after the Cataclysm revamp was a completely different zone and a giant battlefield between the Horde and the Alliance, where Alliance for one of the first times actually started committing war crimes, and the battles were pretty intense. The dev talks about how they started it out as a regular WoW zone with adventurer and all, until it slowly started spiraling out into insanity, betrayals happened, and everyone is just suddenly pulled into the war whether they want to or not. Level-headed leaders from both sides.
Heroes are murdered, people are blamed for the events they had no part in. Decision makers from afar make terrible choices that impact those on the ground. The fallen are grieved. Level-headed leaders are replaced by angry zealots. The stories are personal. This is what the quest developer said about this entire zone and how it was handled in Cataclysm. And yeah, all is fair in love and war. Shit, this makes sense. This shit happens in real life.
Placed by zealots, and atrocities start happening from both
What's up,
sides.
Aurelia?
Essentially, chaos ensues. Now, the main issue was with the Cataclysm, the Alliance has lost
Mount
a lot
and,
more than the Horde. Literally, the
Time
Horde
walking
got
rate.
a giant fortress, metal, reinforced Orgrimmar, while Stormwind was destroyed by Deathwing. He lost an entire part of it. It ended up being weakened. However, all over Azeroth, the Alliance started losing influence, their footing, the base of operations, while the Horde really spread and it got stronger. So they wanted
So what does this tell you though about Garrosh? This is what I'm saying. I always played Alliance, but you got to admit one thing: when the Horde was under Garrosh's leadership, they were fucking winning. They were winning, man. The Horde was doing so much better than the Alliance at that time. It was just winning on every front. They were building up their cities. They were making the Horde great again. I don't know if you want to relate the two leaders, but hey, the one thing that I would say Garrosh made a big mistake on was how he treated the Tauren. The whole thing with Bane and all that shit, the Tauren are an honorable people, and Garrosh, the way he treated him was just kind of fucked up.
equal it out a little bit with the Southern Barons on Kalimdor, with the Alliance
you
now
on
on
the
the
game.
offensive, with the Alliance destroying the Horde bases, but it ended up just not making it much better, which brought a lot of criticism. First off, the Alliance destroys a pretty important Horde point, Camp Torajo, but this happens off-screen. However, the attack on Belmodan ends up being more satisfying for the players than the Goblin camp that was subsequently attacked as well. Overall, the entire point was that the Southern Barons was supposed to be morally gray. No one is a good guy, but even the dev admits that the criticism was right, that the Alliance really ended up taking the short end of the stick here. They were pretty much reacting almost all the time to the Horde actions, while the Horde was a lot more proactive. The Alliance ending for the
makes
zone
sense.
just didn't have the same closure that the Horde story
The Horde had a more gun-ho leader at the time, so yeah, they're gonna take more action.
got. So the Cataclysm
I actually think that fits the lore.
that the Alliance was getting wrecked was actually pretty legit. Blizzard acknowledged that, and the beatdown they got in the Southern Barons just made things even worse. They were hoping people wouldn't complain about it, but they did. So they decided to make things a little different, and this is what led to Mists of Pandaria and what made Garrosh the bad guy. Because of this exact criticism, they decided to give one to the Alliance, but honestly, I feel like this went way out of proportion. I mean, this is the main reason why they decided to turn Garrosh into a completely bad guy, and they wanted to give the Alliance a feel like they were now the ones laying the beatdown, so they almost immediately planned to have them actually invade the capital of the Horde and to depose of the Vorge.
I mean, BFA, if you look at the totality of BFA, honestly, the Alliance did win. They literally ransacked the entire Troll Empire. They all fell. They killed King Rastakhan. Like, they went through the entirety of that whole place, destroyed it. They completely fucked over the Horde, and then the Old Gods shows up, and we got to do all that shit afterwards. But overall, BFA, I mean, the Alliance were the ones who won that war. But prior to that, I mean, yeah, you could look at Garrosh's time as a leader, and yes, the Horde were winning.
Now, this reveal actually explains a lot of inconsistencies we've previously had that we've suspected. I mean, if you followed the story back then, you might
Battle for
remember
Dazara lore was an Alliance win. There's no other way to put it.
Garrosh kinda turned crazy evil essentially overnight, and some of his actions never really made sense. They were inconsistent. Like, literally, he just decided to conquer the entirety of Azeroth and to eradicate the infidels overnight. Let's be real, Garrosh was never a stereotypical good guy. Never the
No, he wasn't a good guy, but he was willing to do what he thought it took to make the Horde stronger. Part of the reason with the pushing away of the Night Elves and all the fights that were going on in Kalimdor was he believed Kalimdor was a resource-rich continent. He thought those resources should belong to the Horde. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, actually. Now, you want to say how he acquired those resources, it was a bit too aggressive or something, sure. But he was just trying to make the Horde better. And trust me, I'm not a Horde sympathizer. I only play Alliance. But I can respect Garrosh's leadership.
was never a stereotypical good guy, never the reasonable guy that Troll was, for example. However, initially, when they introduced him back in TBC and in Outland and in Brad,
Yeah, the
he was
US
more of
strat,
a
exactly.
hot-headed guy with good intentions, an honorable orc with a big burden. He had a lot of trauma with the legacy of his father Grom Hellscream's crimes and what he did for their people, so he was more confused than an angry orc that just didn't want to go the same route. This is all evident with things that happened before. First, he led the expedition in Northrend and was more hot-headed. Sourfang was the voice of reason, but he overall did a pretty good good job there. I mean, that is one of the reasons why Troll even gave him the mantle of the War Chief. He helped us defeat the Lich King and the Scourge. Even that duel that he had prior to Cataclysm with Cairn when he became the War Chief, it was more really Cairn at fault initially for having that happen in the first place. Garrosh didn't really want to duel an old guy, but Cairn just didn't like Garrosh, and they ended up in a duel, and Cairn...
Yeah, well, he didn't like Garrosh's philosophies in that he felt like Garrosh was treating the orcs better than the other races of the Horde. That was part of the conflict. He did mistreat the trolls. Like, yes, he did have a bit of orcish bias towards him. That was probably his biggest fault. But other than that, I mean, maybe Cairn, you know, he was an older Tauren. He should have been a little bit more level-headed and tried to avoid the whole thing.
Actually beat him, but the axe ended
up
being
the poison axe.
Garrosh at that point was honorable. He took no enjoyment in the
he
fact
was the
that
biggest
someone
loss, I agree.
poisoned his weapon without him knowing. He hated Megatha for doing that. After that, he led into war in Cataclysm, but it was more of an actual war, a more controlled war that made sense. There was even that storyline where he threw his commander off the cliff because he could...
This is what I'm talking about. This was like kind of good guy Garrosh, like where Garrosh was like, we're gonna dominate. We're going to do what it takes to bring the Horde, you know, to the forefront, to take the Horde above the Alliance, to do what's right for the Horde before anything else. But we're going to do it with honor. That was kind of how he always led. And this was part of that, was like he executed one of his commanders for being dishonorable, for killing women and children.
Committed crimes, attacked those druids, and he fought without honor, so Garrosh decided to punish him.
Yeah.
Sure, here he already started doing some crazy things, like bringing in the Magnator from Northrend,
Sam's favorite
attacking
word,
the Night Elves. Nonetheless, this is more of an aggressive, hot-headed war chief, and his actions made sense. He needed the resources, and he wanted to expand the influence of the Horde. However, you might have noticed that since that point, especially midst of Pandaria, despite some villain's side that was hiding, Garrosh just went absolutely insane. He
lost his fucking mind.
bombing a whole town full of civilians. He destroyed an entire zone in Pandaria with this old god energy. He started putting people on stakes, exiled everyone other than the orcs, and then he literally took the heart of an old god, an ancient old god, and turned himself into an absolute monster.
Yeah,
now,
the writing took a turn at some point. I believe it was Denuzer who did all this shit.
This entire transformation makes sense because they wanted to make it up to the Alliance players for the Cataclysm storyline, so unfortunately, Garrosh was the one that had to be sacrificed. Interesting enough, what a lot of people don't notice is that from that point forward, Horde went on a villain spiral that literally just got fixed, with them constantly doing something really bad while the Alliance was mainly the good guy on the sidelines. We literally had another invasion of Orgrimmar just a few years later with Sylvanas. Now, Dave Kosak actually explains how the entire Midst of Pandaria was inspired by the Southern Baron storyline of faction conflict and zealots leading the entire expedition instead of actual level-headed leaders. How they're fighting for the territory, how both sides are doing the crazy things. Unfortunately though for the Alliance, to get some W's, Garrosh had to be sacrificed and Orgrimmar had to be sacked as well. I would say this would have been decently reasonable, but I do think Blizzard went a little bit overboard here. I mean, they kind of overcorrected. I mean, back in
this whole fucking Thrall arc too pissed everyone. Like, I did not like this pussy version of Thrall was annoying to deal with. It was all emotional, couldn't control the elements, couldn't get his dick up. Like, this was a soft noodle dick Thrall. And at the end of the day, he took no responsibility for what he did with Garrosh, because the truth is, he just fucking left him. Left him to deal with the Horde because he was too much of a bitch to deal with it himself. That's the problem. And then he got mad at Garrosh for making mistakes. You literally just, you threw him into leadership and just left him. And you're mad at him for making mistakes, even though he technically made the Horde better than you did. Come on, man. What a bitch-ass relationship this was.
Here, I mean, they kind of overcorrected. I mean, back
and he got blue eyes,
they really turned the Horde into just...
And then he cheats in the Mak'gura, fucking dishonorable.
And all our bad guys, and Garrosh at that point really had zero redeeming qualities. However, I would say that it would have been settled, but unfortunately, as they had changes in leadership and all that, it really did hurt the Horde. We then got Vol'jin, who literally did nothing, and then Sylvanas, the puppet of the Grand
He threw a baby in the water and said swim, yeah.
That ended up controlling the Horde. So, because of some random guys complaining on a forum back in 2010, some Alliance fans, the Horde ended up getting wrecked for the next 10 years in order to even out the odds. And the thing is,
Sourfang was a good character. He was the best thing out of BFA. I liked Sourfang a lot.
You have kind of reset since then. Huge changes happened in Blizzard, so who knows where the
What happened to him?
There have been interviews of how faction...
What the hell happened to Zappy Boy, by the way? Like, he got an NPC in the game and everything, and then what happened? I thought he was going to play more of a leadership role.
because there have been interviews of how faction conflict will happen again, but literally everything currently happening in the game shows that the factions are
wasn't
united,
Steve.
so some unstable times are definitely ahead. Thanks for watching. Check out my video on some actual leaks we got from Midnight by clicking on the screen, and check out my raid channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
Yeah, not a bad video. Sad to see what happened to Garrosh, because honestly, I felt like, as me, an Alliance player who always loved Alliance characters, King Varian, one of my favorites, I actually felt like Garrosh was a badass leader for the Horde, and I liked him a lot early on, and then when we found him in Nagrad, when he first took over, all the ways he was acting, and then shit took a turn. Shit took a turn, and it looks like it was just bad writing. I hope it wasn't actually that they listened to forum comments, but it is what it is. Nice video from Doran.